It's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into some of the key issues in the spotlight right now. The 2022 Cannes Film Festival is currently underway, with the Palme d'Or winner to be announced on Saturday, with a couple of South Korean films in contention.
How will Broker by Hirokazu Kore-eda and Decision to Leave, directed by Park Chan-wook fare? We will find out as we connect with Jason Bechervaise, professor Seoul-based film critic. A very good morning to you. Sorry about this. Well, let's start with two films in the spotlight right now. Decision to Leave, directed by Park Chan-wook, and Broker, directed by Hirokazu Kore-eda. Now, can you tell us a bit more about these films?
Sure. I'll start with Decision to Leave. This is the new film by Park Chan-wook. This is his fourth time in competition. His film Old Boy won the Grand Prix in 2004. And yeah, he's one of Korea's leading filmmakers. This new film, it stars Chinese actress Tang Wei along with Park Hae-il. It's a murder mystery. It's not actually based on a novel like many of his films. And it's been very well received in Cannes. It's currently leading the Screen International's jury grid. So I'm very curious to see. I haven't seen it myself yet. Then we have Broker, which is it is a Korean film, but it's directed by a Japanese filmmaker, Hirokazu Kore-eda. He actually won the Palme d'Or with Shoplifters back in 2018, the year before Parasite. And this is a film that has an incredible cast: Song Ga-yeol, Kang Dong-won, Bae-duna, Lee Ji-eun, and yeah, it's I gather a very interesting film, full of his kind of his family tropes. This film is set in Korea, of course, and it's associated. Well, it's centers on characters that are associated with these so-called baby boxes. These allow infants to be dropped off anonymously. Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see that film. I'll be seeing it next week. But that's essentially, yeah, the two Korean films in competition.
Yeah, I guess you can certainly bet that it's going to be a good film when Song Kang-ho is in the movie. But speaking of which, we saw Parasite win Palme d'Or a few years back. How are the two films being received at the Cannes right now, and do we have a shot at winning the top prize?
Interesting question. With Cannes, you never know. It's not like the Oscars, because the Oscars, you have all these kind of awards that come before the kind of the culmination of the Academy Awards, and so you have a good idea which films are going to win. There can be some surprises, of course. With Cannes, though, it's all kind of it all takes place over a few days. There's a lot of films, and sometimes what critics like won't be what the jury likes. Now, the jury this year it's interesting. There are a lot of actors. Vincent Lindon, he's chairing the jury, so you could well see a film that's character-driven. We'll have to wait and see. Now, we have seen two Asian films win the Palme d'Or recently. Kore-eda won the Palme d'Or in 2018, so I don't see him or his film winning it. Decision to Leave, there is a possibility, but it is a genre film, so we'll have to wait and see. I think it could win something. Tang Wei certainly has attracted a lot of notice, given her very strong performance in the film, I gather. But certainly critically, Decision to Leave seems to be the film that's being extremely well received. It received raving reviews from like the three big kind of trade publications: Screen International, Variety, and The Hollywood Reporter. It's not been universally liked, but certainly and nothing ever really is at Cannes. I think Parasite was an exception. Yes, we'll have to wait and see. But I have a feeling we'll see some awards given to a Korean film, but we'll have to wait and see. It's impossible to say.
Right, well, we'll just have to wait and see, as you said. But we want to also talk about Hunt, which is Squid Game actor Lee Jung-jae's directorial debut. Now, how is that being received, and what are your thoughts on the film?
Okay, so in Cannes you have the films by the auteurs, so that's where that's the competition of films. You know, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite was in that part of the program. Now, in terms of the Hunt, this is a genre film. This is part of the midnight section. This is where Train to Busan screens back in 2016, and that was so well received that every year since then they've had a Korean genre film. There was Han Jae-in's Emergency Declaration that was screened in that section last year. In fact, that hasn't even been released in Korea yet. So Hunt may even be released in Korea before Emergency Declaration. I was a little bit nervous about this film. I hadn't heard great things, but the reaction seems to be quite positive. Of course, it's Lee Jung-jae's directorial debut. It's an espionage thriller. We've seen a lot of these kind of films dealing with North and South Korean relations, and I'm very curious to see how it kind of depicts those. Also stars Jung Woo-sung as well, action film. I'm very intrigued.
You know, oftentimes people talk about this so-called parasite effect, right? Where more people are now paying attention to Korean films thanks to the success of Parasite. So are we seeing this right now, and will Korean films be more recognized globally moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the timing for Parasite didn't work in Korean cinema's favor in a sense because we had the pandemic that came just, a few weeks, well, certainly hit in the States and here in Korea just a few weeks later. So there was a little bit of a lull, and it'd be interesting to see what happens this year given the Korean films in Cannes, and we've got a film doing very well in theaters, The Outlaws. The Roundup, it's the Outlaws sequel. And we also have streaming content that's done very well, of course, Squid Game. So yes, there's a huge appetite for Korean cinema right now. But it's not new in a sense. I mean, going back to Park Chan-wook, I mean, Old Boy was in a way kind of the first part of this wave. And that year we had Memories of Murder, we had A Tale of Two Sisters, and then a few years later we had The Host, we had the films, the Hollywood films, the global films directed by the Korean filmmakers. And then we had Train to Busan, and then we had Parasite. And now potentially we have Decision to Leave. And I'm very curious to see what happens with the awards season this year. Do these films go on and attract interest on the awards circuit? What about Song Kang-ho? What about Tang Wei? I mean, Chinese actress, of course, but in a Korean film. So we'll have to wait and see what happens over the next few months. But I'm certainly very, very keen to see how Korean films perform, both locally and internationally.
Well, thank you very much for your insights. Really hope to speak to you again soon.
Okay, thank you for having me.